All right, $1 million question. Why are we moving back to New York? So somebody commented that you guys must be millionaires to be able to walk away with $100 an hour.
That is pretty far from the truth. Maybe not too far from the
Not
truth,
too
but
far.
we're getting there. But yeah, no, part of the reason why we moved to California to begin with is because we were living paycheck to paycheck in New York and felt like the working conditions for nurses matched the pay in New York because you don't get paid well and you're overworked and underpaid for what you do. So I had a friend that was working with me in New York. He didn't even tell me he was moving to California. But when I found out, I immediately called him and I asked him what it was like for him and his family because his wife is also a nurse. He told me that moving to California was the best decision that him and his wife have ever made. And I needed to know why. So we decided to book a trip to California to come and visit him. And when we came to visit him, I was under the impression that he was renting an apartment because that's what he was doing with his wife and his kids when they first moved to California. So we roll up to this place, and as we're rolling up, all we see is houses. And then we come onto this house and knock on the door, and I ask him if he's renting the house.
It was the first question asked. It was like, wait a minute, are you renting here? It was a big house.
Yeah, I mean, the house is at least 4,000 square
yeah.
feet, right?
It was pretty big.
And we're like, there's no way he's purchased this house because he just moved there 8 months ago.
Not to mention, he said he was renting.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So when we opened the door and we asked him this question, his response was, oh, I forgot to tell you guys, we bought a house.
We were like, what? This house?
You know, because
Oh my God.
the answer you get or the thought you get in your mind when you think about California is that it's unaffordable. There's no way you can buy a house out here.
How long was he in California for?
8 months.
8 months.
8 months. Just
8
about 8
months.
months. So when I found out that he had purchased that house, I had thousands of questions that I needed to ask him. One of those questions was, how much are you earning out here in California to be able to afford a house like this? This is insane. And he went deep into the numbers. He told me exactly what his hourly pay is. He told me how much money he was bringing home after taxes. And he told me about all of the benefits that California nurses have, specifically in the hospital that he was working in, which is Kaiser Permanente in Sacramento.
This was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody really talked about it on socials.
Yeah.
Nobody really knew. Not a lot of people knew about California back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about their pay. It wasn't really like the information that we have now.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have a friend or if you didn't have family that worked in California as nurses, you wouldn't even know. You'd think it was just such a far reach. Like you just had no idea what it was like.
And you know what? I should also mention that before we made our trip to California for the first time, because when we came to visit him, that had been the second time we had come to California because we went to San Diego first. But before all of that, the reason I ended up calling him was because I had an orientee who was a student at Columbia University. And she told me that both of her parents were working in California for Kaiser Permanente, making over $200,000 per year, and they were not working any overtime. In order to confirm what she was saying to me, first I asked her to show me proof. I needed to see proof because I did believe her, but I just wanted to see the numbers for myself. And she brought the pay schedule for Kaiser Permanente to my job. And after she sent that to me is when I called our friend. So we came to visit. He told us all these good things about where he was working and about Northern California, specifically in Sacramento. That week that we were here visiting him, we got our licenses approved. And right away, I started applying for jobs. And I got 2 job offers within 2 weeks. And we finally ended up accepting an offer for me to work at Sutter Roseville about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks after I started applying for jobs. So when we first decided to move, we had no savings because my job was gonna start maybe a month after I got that job offer. And we decided to just pack up our things, put it all on a credit card, and move out here.
We were like, peace out, New York. We were just like ready to drop everything. We're like, okay, we gotta do this. We're doing this.
Yeah, and you know the funny thing is,
I think it's because we saw his house and we
Yeah.
were like, if you're living this way, you're paying this much, you're getting
Yeah.
paid this much. Like we can we're gonna do this too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And the funny thing is that just for some context, like in New York, we were making 47 to $50 per hour, right? So the first job that was offered to me, I believe I was making around 65 to $65 per hour in Sutter Roseville. And I said, you know what? It's not as high as what my friend was making, but
But the cost of living was so low. Do you remember how much we were paying in rent?
oh my gosh. So we were paying $1,600 initially, but because we were bringing our cats, it turned out to like $1,800 per month. And that was for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in Roseville.
It was like 1,000 square feet. It had 2 pools.
Yeah.
It had like a small gym. It was like a really nice complex. So it was in a gated complex. 2 parking spots, and it was just like all these amenities for 1,800. It was just like compared to our 2,500, 850 square foot apartment in New York, that was a walk up.
We saw this opportunity to move out here. And when we came to visit our friend that same week, we said, hey, just show us some apartments out here and take us to some decent neighborhoods, but make sure you're gonna show us a place where the apartment is gonna be cheaper than what we're currently paying for in New York City, because we didn't wanna increase our cost of living knowing that we were gonna make more money. We actually wanted to decrease our cost of living and make more money.
And this was in Roseville.
Yeah. So we lived in Roseville for 8 months. Just about, like, more than that, because we didn't move out until like a year after, but we lived there for 8 months.
Why did we pick Roseville? We picked Roseville because we have a daughter, and because of our friend as well. Roseville has really good school system.
Exactly.
So we wanted her to go to a good school.
So we lived there for about 8 months. And within that time, like I said, we had put everything in our credit card. I was working at Sutter Roseville, and Monica was applying for hundreds of jobs. She must have went through so many interviews,
Pause
like
right
3
there.
or 4 interviews.
So Jason, because he's an ER nurse, of course, he's easily hireable. At that time, I was so burnt out at bedside. I did med surg for 2 years, and then I went over to endoscopy. I worked in New York Presbyterian in endoscopy. So when we moved to California, my intent was for me to work in endoscopy. Right, babe?
Yeah.
That was my plan, because I did not want to do bedside anymore. I was done. I was so burnt out. So I think that's the reason why I had a harder time landing a job.
Yeah, so we applied for hundreds of jobs. I'm not even kidding. It must have been hundreds of jobs. I submitted so many
I think
applications.
it was 300, babe. Right?
Yeah, I submitted like hundreds of applications for Monica. And then finally, after like 3 or 4 interviews, after she had already...
It was more than that. Oh my
well,
God.
no, it felt like more, but no, it was 3 or 4.
Yeah, it was
so
3 or 4,
after
yeah.
she accepted a job offer at Dignity,
It was
like
far.
way
It
up
was
there.
up in...
Yeah.
Ooh.
So she got that job offer while she was in orientation at Dignity. And when she got that call...
Oh my gosh. You
Okay.
were... Oh my God. Jason was so excited. He nearly shat his pants.
But wait, hold on.
What?
You had to let your manager know at Dignity
Oh my gosh. I felt so bad.
that you couldn't work there anymore.
I said that something came up and I couldn't work. And the problem was, it wasn't only just the pay, it was also very, very far. This was in Placer County, and we were living in Roseville at that time. So she was really sweet, and she was like, okay, I still have to pay you. She sent me a check. But moving forward, I ended up getting a job offer at Kaiser South Sac. And this was before Jason got into Kaiser. So I got into Kaiser before Jason did. He was working at Sutter Roseville at that time.
Yeah. And okay, so it took Monica 3 months to get that job,
Yep.
right? And when she got that job, I was working at Sutter Roseville. She began to work at Kaiser. And we still had about $20,000 of credit card debt for the moving expenses that we had incurred when we moved to California. When Monica started working, within 1 month, we paid off that $20,000. That's how much money we were making, both working.
As a staff nurse, and
Yeah.
that was day shift, okay?
And remember, we were only paying about $1,800 a month for our rent. And I think at the time when I was working at Sutter Roseville and Monica was working for Kaiser, we were bringing home something like maybe $15,000 a month, max. It was closer to $14,000.
Speaking of cost of living,
Yeah.
so when people say, oh, Sacramento is getting so expensive, people forget there are other towns in the greater Sacramento area. It's not just Sacramento. You can live in Roseville, Rockland, Elk Grove is a really good one, and you don't need to. Your commute is not as bad as from Jersey going to New York City. You don't have to go through a toll and pay $15 to cross
That's
that
true.
George Washington Bridge. So people talk about the cost of living all the time, living in Sacramento, but they don't take into account all the other factors. And then next topic is that we bought our house. Kind of like history repeating itself. How long did we take to
It took 8 months.
8 months as
Before
well.
we put a deposit down on our house. When we first moved here, we were like, oh, there's no way we're gonna be able to afford a house that's over $500,000. Like, that's
Yeah,
already
ain't no
pushing
way.
it. But then when we started looking at homes, we decided to put a deposit on this one home that we fell in love with. When we put that deposit, I had received a job offer to work for Kaiser. So it had solidified our reasons for wanting to move into a house. At the time, we were like, okay, we can afford it now. But we didn't have enough money for a down payment. So we had to borrow money to use as a down payment for this house. We borrowed $70,000, which I would not recommend anybody do, but we did it because we were like, okay, we're just gonna pay this off right away. As soon as we move in, we're gonna pay it off real quick. We moved into the house and we've been living there since March of 2018. Bought it for $697,000. Put $70,000 down, and our monthly payments are about $4,000 a month. And for those of you that are interested in knowing how much we earn after taxes, you can go back to all of our YouTube videos. But at one point, before this year, we were earning an average of like $17,000 to $19,000 per month. This is with us working about 30 hours per week. And if you think about it, we were making $19,000 a month, spending $4,000 a month on our mortgage. That's why Monica and I traveled so much, more than we had ever traveled. We did more things here than we would have ever imagined doing. But the one thing that we've noticed as soon as we moved here is that we missed New York, regardless of how much traveling we were doing.
Yeah, I think traveling was a way to channel our homesickness. You know, we were passionate about traveling, but it was a good distraction.
And you know, if you live in New York and you've lived in California, you would know that if you love to travel, traveling from New York is so much easier and less stressful than traveling from California. It's gonna take you an entire day just to get to Europe. When we went to the Maldives, it took us nearly 2 days just to get there. If you wanna go to Iceland, it's much farther from here than it is from New York. There's
Oh my
so many
gosh.
different places.
You can go to Iceland in 6 hours
Exactly.
from New York.
But if you're in California, you're close to Hawaii, which is why we've been
Asia.
going to Hawaii so many times. You're close to Asia. You're close to New Zealand and Australia,
French Polynesia.
and French Polynesia.
A lot of
Yeah.
good places too.
Yeah, but I feel like there's more variety on the East Coast. And then also, if you think about it, you want to go to the Caribbean, it's literally like 4 hours away, 4.5 hours away from New York City. So if it's winter and you want to escape the winter and you want to go somewhere warm, you just go to any island in the Caribbean. And it's easy to get to, it's inexpensive. So that's one thing that we really miss about New York. But once we started really experiencing the area that we were living in when we first moved to California, which was Roseville, we started becoming really homesick.
And why do we feel homesick? Like, what makes us want to move back? It's because right away we felt kind of out of place in California. And, you know, okay, so people were telling us, why do you guys promote Northern California, Sacramento area, if you guys just want to move back to New York? Here's the reason why. We're just trying to be transparent. We want to tell you guys the good, the bad, the ugly, okay? We just want to tell you every single aspect about us living here in Sacramento and NorCal. So anyways, when we did move here, coming from New York City, and you move to a small city like Sacramento or a small town like Roseville, you're really gonna feel out of place. So you live in a really diverse city that's just full of culture. It's like a hustle bustle, and then you come out here and it's in the boons and it's really quiet, it's very slow paced. It was very much a culture shock, pretty much.
And I also have to shed some light to that, because when I worked at Sutter Roseville, don't get me wrong, I loved working at Sutter Roseville. It was actually one of my favorite hospitals to ever work in. But I, along with another coworker of mine, were the only minorities in the entire department.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to be in a place where you feel like you don't belong, you know?
Yeah.
You want to have a sense of belongingness
Yeah.
in your workplace, you know?
But that did change when I started working at Kaiser, right?
Yeah, so
Because
it's
there's so
Kaiser.
much diversity in my department at the moment.
Because that was
Yeah.
Roseville. Roseville has Roseville is not as diverse as Sacramento.
Yeah. But even with the diversity that we have, there's a different feeling to it. And it's hard to describe it.
It's really hard to describe.
It's hard to describe, but I think part of it has to do with the fact that when we lived in New York, if you wanted to hang out with your coworkers after your shift, it was very easy to do. There are restaurants on every street right outside your job. That doesn't really exist out here. Unless you're working in Sutter Midtown, Sutter
It's
downtown.
just the city dynamics. The dynamics of the city and the greater Sacramento area, it's just very, very different, you know?
Yeah. Because here, if you want to hang out with your friends, your coworkers, after work, you're going to have to drive to the location you guys want to go eat breakfast at or
Which
eat
I've done
dinner
before,
at.
but it's so rare.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
But in New York, if you guys have your cars parked in the parking lot by your job,
or you took the train at work.
or you took the train, you just find a place right outside of work that you guys want to go eat at, and you all walk together to the restaurant. That's why it's so hard for a lot of nurses to leave New York, because they don't feel like they'll find that anywhere else. And in a way, they're kind of right. You know?
The camaraderie is just so different in New York.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to explain. I have lifelong friends that I met when I was working in Sinai, and I only worked there for 2 years. And I'm still good friends with them till this day. I only worked with a coworker for just 1 year, and then till this day I talk to her. But I've been at my job for 7 years, and I don't really, it's kind of sad, but in a way, I don't blame my coworkers. I don't really have a close friend from my job, like that I regularly talk to or text. Unlike in New York, I would always just hang out with my friend on a regular basis.
So that's another reason. And I don't think it has anything necessarily to do with the people, not necessarily. It's just the environment that we work in, the environment that we live in is not conducive to that type of relationship that you can build with your coworkers.
So the next reason why we want to move back is...
Let me see, in 2020, maybe 2019, we were thinking that our daughter was going to turn 18 soon. She's 17 now. She's going to be 18 this year. But at the time, we were like, oh, when our daughter turns 18, she's going to go off to college. We're going to live in a camper van and we're going to travel the country. That was the dream. We just wanted to do that.
Oh my gosh.
And then in 2020,
during the
lockdown, we find out that we got pregnant. And we had told ourselves, there's no way we're going to get pregnant.
Yeah.
This is not even in our plans.
We were gonna, after our daughter goes to college, we were like, oh yeah, child free.
And you know what? And we were salivating at the thought of being free for once in our lives.
We were like, no way, ain't no way we were gonna have no more kids. We are done, because we were young parents, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what? I know when there's people out there who are just partners who don't have kids and they're just living life, I envy those people, because it's nice to just be able to like...
That was supposed to be us!
Yeah. It's nice to just be able to like go on about your day and not have to think about another human being other than yourself and your partner. It's amazing.
All right, so stop right there. Then we have our son, okay? All right, because I don't want this to sound negative.
Yes. Okay. So, but first, before we had him, we were devastated. I should say that.
And realistically speaking, a lot of people don't talk about this.
Yeah.
You know how we were devastated. Okay.
And we had to have a family conference because our family was upset with us. Okay, we're being real with you guys. Okay, our family was upset with us because we did not want to go through with this.
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful. We're so thankful that we had this conference, because they convinced us. And you know what? The conversation went something like this, especially with my brother, who's also got this financial mindset. He said, what is wrong with you guys? You guys are successful in life. You are making good money. You have nothing to worry about financially. And you're telling me that you don't want to go through with this? You should be ashamed of yourselves.
But honestly, no other opinion could have changed my opinion.
Yeah.
It was until after, the fact that I saw my son on the ultrasound. That's another story. But anyways, moving forward, do we regret having our son?
No.
No.
Not even one bit. No way.
Because we're a family of 4 now. He completes us.
Yes.
Okay? We adore our son.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Yeah. And
ever.
And and I remember, and I feel so guilty for saying this. I remember there was 2 of my coworkers, 2 male coworkers, both Filipinos, really cool, down to earth. they came to me one day and they was like, so how do you feel about, you guys being pregnant? And I was like, man, it's gonna be so hard. I don't know, man. I don't know. I wish we wouldn't have gotten pregnant, but here we are. And they were like, what? I can't believe you just said that. Did you really say that? And I was like, yeah, I know it sounds wrong. But then when we had our son, it's like, all we do is think about him. Like, he lights up our day. And everyone, all of our family members are always asking about him. And he just makes everybody laugh.
It wasn't supposed to happen. So when
No.
my mother-in-law found out, Jason's mom found out, oh my God. This was the child that everybody has been asking us to have.
Yeah.
So everybody was happy.
Yeah.
Look at all these ducks. Shoo, duckies!
Come on, move along. Can you see it?
I don't even know.
Okay, let's go.
Shoo! Oh my God. So yeah, so
Is that our
why
car?
we... Huh?
Is that our car?
Oh shit, what? Uh-oh.
Oh. What the fuck?
Something's wrong with our car!
Oh, no. Maybe something's stuck under there. No? Oh, shoot.
Anyways, we just found out our car is about to croak. Okay, so why are we talking about our son? And why is our son the reason why we want to move back to New York?
Yeah.
There you go. So, so our son right now, he's 2.5 years old. He's about to be 3. The goal was by the time he is in kindergarten, at the very least, we want to move back to New York. And the reason for this is once he's in school. So we've been parents for 17 years now, and we learned that once your kids are in school age, it's difficult to travel with them. It's difficult to take them out in the mountains to go snowboarding. Anything you want to do extracurricular is just very difficult once they are already set in that Monday to Friday schedule that you cannot take your kid out of. Like literally, our daughter was almost truant at one point because she missed so much days in school. Okay.
All right, sorry, I had to step out of the car because our car started having some mechanical issues. I don't know what noise was coming out of the car, but we're gonna have to take it to the repair shop because something's wrong with it. We got a whole bunch of stuff fixed on the car and we just had it serviced and we spent $1,500. So now I'm afraid we're gonna have another $1,500 bill in order to repair whatever's going on with the car right now. Anyways, so part of the reason why we wanna go back to New York because our son is now born is because for the last 17 years, anytime we want to go on vacation, we have to wait till our daughter is either on a summer break, on a winter recess, Thanksgiving break, and the only way around that is if they end up becoming truant in school, which almost happened with our daughter a year or 2 years ago when we pulled her out of school because we wanted to take a couple of vacations. But with our son, if we were to move back to New York, we have family out there. So if we want to go on a vacation for like, let's say a week, and we don't want to pull him out of school, we have family members that can pick him up from school, drop him off. They can stay with him for the entire week if that's what's required. And we don't have to worry about hiring a nanny or something like that, which, we could totally do over here. But if we can do it with a family member that we trust, we would much more prefer something like that. And we have plenty of family members in New York to choose from. Here's another reason. I've mentioned so many times in all the videos that I've made, we had a net worth of somewhere around negative 80,000 before we moved to California. That consisted of like student loans and the car and all this other stuff. By the time we moved here, and then after we moved here, we started investing our money. We started paying off all this debt because during COVID, we weren't traveling. So we paid off all that debt that we had, over $128,000. We got our net worth from negative 80,000 to now like just under $700,000. And for people who talk about, but the cost
of the taxes!
For the people that talk about the taxes, you need to stop thinking about the taxes and start thinking about how much you're actually bringing home and how much you have left over.
And
that's
the
what
quality
matters.
of life, hello?
Because when I look at numbers, I'm looking at how much ends up in my bank account. I'm not thinking about, oh my gosh, how much taxes did we pay? That's not the point. The point is making sure you're always bringing home more money than you would have had you not have a job like we do.
But
out
on
here in
top of that,
California.
so what people believe is that you're paying an insane amount of taxes and then you live in a high cost of living area. People forget that people forget that California is a large state and that it's just the Bay Area and LA.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm going to respond to a couple of comments that people have made. Like, you need to stop telling nurses that this is what it's like for all nurses in general, not just California. When I have never said that. I've always said, if you want to make more money, move to a part in Northern California, specifically a place like Sacramento or its surrounding regions, so you can have a high salary with a low cost of living. And I am not telling you that this is what you can make in another state, another city in the US. What I am telling you is that if you want to live in a place where you have more money at the end of the month, even after paying all of your bills, you need to move. You can't just assume that you're going to be making the same amount somewhere else that you are out here. And going back to the taxes, yes, you pay more taxes, but it's not 50%. I run these numbers all the time. Monica and I pay about 35% of our overall income towards taxes. That includes federal taxes and state taxes. In addition to that, we max out our 401k every year. So even after maxing out our 401k, paying all the taxes that we pay, and paying our mortgage, we still have $10,000 left over for other bills. That's how much money you will have left over. And if you're an individual person, let's say you're single, and you're thinking about moving to California, specifically Sacramento, you can totally afford to live out here. I am not telling people that living in this part of California is the worst thing and that's why we're leaving. No, we don't regret moving to this part of California at all. But because of all the reasons we've mentioned, that includes our son. It includes the fact that we do miss the culture of New York City. It's all these other things that we really, really miss that we can't get from living in an area like this, which is why we're moving back to New York City. We plan to move back before our son is in kindergarten. So that's likely to happen 2026, like midsummer of 2026 or so. And I might get to the point where in 2025, we think about me possibly going per diem at Kaiser. Right now, the reason I'm not going per diem is because we rely on my health insurance and all of my benefits. So I'm a part-timer right now. And as a part-timer, I get full benefits. But if I were to go per diem, I'd lose my health insurance. And that's something that costs about $2,000 a month in California, or this part of California, for a family of 4. And at the moment, I'm not willing to give that up, which is why I'm stuck in this part-time position. But Monica's per diem, so she kind of makes up for the lower salary that I have at $103 per hour.
Yeah, that's low.
Because she's making $132 per hour this year. But to drive down the point, we are still gonna move back to New York, and there's nothing wrong with living in California. Don't be afraid to move. You might just enjoy it more than we do. You might live here for the rest of your life.
And it's not, you can just move here for a couple of years and move right back to your hometown, just like one of our friends did.
Exactly. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But you have to be willing to take a chance. And I feel like it's the best decision we've made. Just like my friend who moved here before us said, this was the best decision he made.
Oh, and just so you know, we have successfully recruited two couples, and one of my older coworkers from New York City, from New York Presbyterian. So they're happily here, and they're not. I don't think they'll ever move back, actually. And I know that's just in my circle, but I know we've had people move here from all parts of the country, based off of our YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's funny because there's not one day that goes by where I go to work and I don't run into someone who's started working there at my job because of a video they saw on YouTube from our channel. And I think it's really cool to see that people were willing to trust us that much to be willing to do that, because there's a coworker of mine who moved from Ireland and he now works with me, and he said him and his wife moved out here because of the videos that they watched, our videos that they watched.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so funny because I have one of my good friends, Eliza, before I moved here, I told her, okay, she told me, okay, you go be my guinea pig, let me know how California is. And when she moved here, she didn't even visit Sacramento. She just came here and trusted my experience. She just dropped everything and moved. And she will never, ever, she never, ever wants to move back to New York. She lives in Folsom now. And she's living her life.
Yeah.
Happily.
So, if you have any questions, any additional questions
Are we going to talk about our plan?
Oh yeah. Okay, before we end the video, I need to talk about what our plan is and how we're gonna manage this when we move back to New York. Because as you all know, I want to get to a point where I'm no longer working as a nurse, because that's always been my ultimate goal in life, is to not have to work for anybody else. I want to be my own boss. I've always been like that. I've been like that since I was a teenager. It's not that I hate the nursing profession. It's just that I hate working for someone else more than I hate the nursing profession. Put it that way, okay? More than I dislike the nursing profession.
Did you see that meme? It says, we don't need any more podcasters. We need healthcare workers. I feel so attacked. But it's true. But in a way, we're just, we've been in healthcare for a decade now. It's time to move on.
And you know what? Before I became a nurse, I had several other jobs. I kept hopping from job to job. So we've been nurses Monica's been a nurse for 10 years. I'm going to be a nurse for 11 years. So this is the longest career I've ever held on to.
But people are going to say 10 years. That's not a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
all perspective. It's all perspective.
Honestly, I don't understand. If you love being a nurse, I understand. Eventually you'll move on to a different specialty. There's nothing wrong with leaving the bedside, and there's nothing wrong with leaving the profession. Why do I owe this? Why do we owe this to everybody? Yeah. If we want to move on, then we want to move on.
Yeah, exactly. And what's another thing? You don't say this about people in other professions. If, let's say, someone is an accountant and now he doesn't want to be an accountant and he wants to go into law, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, why are you leaving? You're doing such a disservice to all accountants. No, nobody says that. But if you're a nurse and you're leaving the profession, oh my gosh, it's the biggest deal in the world.
Listen, that meme also said, we don't need podcasters, we need electricians. But plan.
So the plan is, we currently have about $100,000 of personal equity on our home. We bought it for $697,000.
That's on the low ball, right?
And we've paid so $697,000, and we've paid about $100,000 into our mortgage, which is insane. This is another thing I wanted to talk about. This is why when we move back to New York, I don't want to buy anymore. We bought our house for $697,000, and right now we owe about $580,000. That's how much we have left on our mortgage. We've been living in this house now since
and that's on a good rate.
Yeah, we've been living in this house now since 2018, and it's 2024. Okay, we will be living in this house now for 7 years. Every year, if you think about it, we paid about $50,000 per year just to live in this house, because it's $4,000 a month, right? So that's $48,000 a year. So we paid about $50,000 per year. Multiply that by 7, and that's $350,000 that we poured into this house just to live in it, when we could have used that money and invested it in index funds and grown our money exponentially compared to what we have with our house.
He wants to do what Ramit is doing.
Yeah, Ramit Sethi, if you guys don't know. So we have about $100,000 of personal equity, but our house at the moment, when you look on Zillow or Redfin, it's about $900,000. At its peak, maybe 1.1 million. But that was during COVID when everybody was buying houses. Now, because the interest rates are so high, nobody wants to buy a house. So it's about $900,000, meaning that we have about $300,000 in total equity on our home. So when we sell our house, we're gonna use $150,000 of our equity to rent an apartment for 2 years in New York City. That $150,000 might last us longer than 2 years, but we're gonna set aside $150,000 for our living expenses. Then we're gonna have about $100,000 that we're gonna either reinvest in our business. And our business, for those of you that keep asking, is we have a website where I sell several spreadsheets that show you what the cost of living is like in every single city in the US for any profession you can think of in healthcare. In addition to that one, I also have a spreadsheet where I have the salaries for the highest paying hospitals in California. And you can filter out what your salary would look like based on your circumstances. So like you have 10 years of experience, you wanna work night shift, you wanna work 20 hours a week, you can put that into the spreadsheet and you can find out how much money you're gonna get paid per hour, per week, or per year. So that's one portion of it. Then we also have our YouTube channel. That's how we drive a lot of the traffic to our spreadsheets. But we also make money from the ads that play on our YouTube channel. We make money from sponsorships on our YouTube channel. We make money from affiliate links that I include in there. And now our goal is to also make money from the videos that we're posting on social media like Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook. Because our account has actually been blowing up on Facebook more than any other account.
Thanks to Monica.
Which is crazy. Yeah. So we're going to be living off of that money that we have from our equity for the 2 years. And the hope is that we're going to be able to have our current income replaced by the content creation income and the website that we have. And I think it's definitely possible because last year we were able to make $3,000 a month from our business income. And we're going to also set aside another $50,000 in case we have an emergency. And if we're not making enough money by the time we choose to move to New York, then Monica is gonna pick up a part-time job or at least a job that will allow us to get benefits.
Yeah, so my plan was, they were like, oh, why are you leaving your job, your California job for New York? So the good thing about New York is that even though the pay is not that great, is that there's so many options. There's so many non-bedside options. I even saw an IVF clinic opening for New York Presbyterian. I saw like an ECT therapy, ECT nurse. I could work in NICU. I could work in a cancer hospital. So many options. And these are jobs that are based on my, with my experience. I'm going to be making at the very least 6 figures, 100,000. So that's just a little bit of supplemental income. But then I'm also going to be able to cover at the very least insurance and dental. And that's really all we really need.
And if you guys are not aware of it by now, nurses can easily find work. So if all else fails, I will be able to just go back to a nursing job. And we have so many connections all across the United States.
He can go per diem somewhere.
I can easily find a job.
Yeah, there's just so many options. I can even go back to endoscopy if I want to. So because again, so our son is gonna be in kindergarten. So I was thinking I could do a Monday to Friday, job like a 9 to 5 clinic job. Because once my son is already gonna be in school, he's gonna be in grade school. He's gonna be set in that schedule. I might as well take advantage of that and work around about the same time he's in school. So I think that's doable. I'm not gonna say this is gonna be smooth sailing. I'm terrified that I'm gonna be miserable at my job, honestly, because this is New York. You know what I mean? So I told Jason that if we need to extend our time here in California, I'm still open to it. But I do want to move back by the time our son is in kindergarten.
And some of the stuff that motivates me to just focus heavily on content creation and, everything that our brand stands for is the number of people that reach out to me and comment on our videos to tell me and Monica that the reason they are at a place in their lives financially where they don't have to worry about money is because of us. I'm so motivated to continue doing this because I feel like all nurses need to feel like that, not just us. Up here in Sacramento. And in addition to that, I watch so many nurses who do post on social media who are making so much money doing that. There's this nurse, Scrub Hacks Lindsay. She's so transparent with the income that she makes from her content creation business. She made like $55,000 last month.
Yo, imagine we were Nurse John status. We'd be making bank.
Nurse John, I believe he made maybe like $2 million or something last year.
But here's what I like about what we do, okay? We're here to help out nurses. We're not here, no shade on all the other nurse influencers, but we're here to help other nurses. I know I get that, comedy is our therapy as nurses, but we're a little bit different. We're here to provide information that's going to help you leverage your career, your nursing job, and give you insight on what it's like to be a nurse here in Northern California, because nobody told us this back then, 7 years ago. We had to see it for ourselves. And 2 years in, we were like, we should make a YouTube channel. It took us a while, but we've always been wanting to do this.
And you know what? We don't make the videos to brag at all. Like, that is not our intention. Before I became a nurse, I always wanted to know what other people made in their careers. And you guys see all these channels on YouTube where like this YouTuber will walk up to some random person and be like, hey, excuse me, how much do you make for a living? Like, I would love to expose a side of nursing that everybody thinks is taboo to talk about. Because the reality is that if we don't talk about it, we're gonna continue to be underpaid and continue to get mistreated, overworked, and underappreciated by our employers. And it can be so much better than what you already have. Just watch what we do and watch how we live, guys, and you'll see that it's so much better than what you currently have. And it can be better for you.
And I think that we were already doing this on a smaller scale before we started a YouTube channel. We were telling our friends from New York, come on over here, see what it's like. Come see our house, come see our jobs. We were doing this on a very, very small scale. We successfully recruited these people, but we wanted to do it in a larger scale because we were like, okay, there's so many people out there that we could really help.
It's
and
so
we're not
true.
gonna gatekeep it.
Because when we moved here, we had so many friends asking us what it was like to be a nurse out here and if it was possible to even afford living out here. There were so many friends that we kept talking to and telling the same story over and over. And we're like, if we keep doing this for our friends, we might as well just tell everybody else and make a YouTube channel about it because they keep asking us. I'm sure so many other people would want to know the same thing. So that's it. I hope you guys really got some answers in this video to the questions that you guys were having about our reasons to want to move back to New York. But again, if you have any more questions, let us know and we're going to address them in a future video. All right?
Ciao.